Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching and Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channels. This is Pro Wrestling Logic, and we've got over almost 1,500 audios for you to choose from, old school, new school, and all points in between. This is the NXT review for the 23rd of March 2010, and we are moving along through the first season quite nicely. Obviously, a much different show than NXT is today, but just thought it would be interesting to get the and in a meaningful way. Heath Slater alongside Justin Gabriel. So two rookies teaming up here, and kind of a little bit different there. Skip Sheffield and Wade Barrett are their opponents. So basically a all rookies match, so to speak. William Regal out there with Sheffield almost endorsing that he couldn't be out there alone, or at least Regal in storyline thought so. I think there's probably some people that still think he couldn't be out there alone. Of course, he becomes later known as Ryback, and he's set up as the next big thing. And so some power moves by Sheffield, who, kind of puts a little bit of extra pressure. Slater tries to do what he can with him, but can't really get him to move around that well. Tag off, respectively, both men to Barrett and Gabriel. Much different matchup there. Barrett has shown Ackerman Irish whips and getting things going along in a decent way. Hard kick by Gabriel, who manages to get a couple of kicks along the way. Doesn't get all he wants on it, but tip up and forward drop by Barrett, who just manages to kick and kind of stays on his man a good bit here. And Barrett manages to hit just about everything he can in that corner. Doesn't get everything he wants, but again, manages to do what he can where he can, and roll up by Barrett. Barrett manages, as mentioned, pretty quick roll up and a basic go of it. Tries to hook Gabriel into and does a seated abdominal stretch. They take the majority of the match here for the next little while, as the power versus speed is the story, with power winning out in the form of Wade Barrett. Barrett ends up tagging off to Sheffield. Sheffield uses his version of power, body slams and the like. Not exactly the prettiest match by any stretch of the imagination, at least when Sheffield's in there, but needless to say, Gabriel stays in for a good bit of the match. Heath finally comes in on the hot tag and gets a series of near falls, primarily against the man who would later be Ryback. Christian makes his way out finally later in the match. Good facials by Slater. Slater manages Irish whips along the way. Doesn't get all he wants on it, but gets enough. Kick under the chin and hops up to the second rope on the inside, but Sheffield catches him. Doesn't get all he wants on catching him, but tries to put him up for power slam. But a roll off and a roll up by Heath Slater. Big miscommunication between the two. And then we see Slater slide in and get a victory over Skip Sheffield due to the miscommunication. Daniel Bryan again with the highlight package. Miz talks about not being impressed with Bryan by any stretch of the imagination and being held back by having the worst pro of the bunch. And then there's more highlights of the hype for WrestleMania in a couple of days. The end of the career of Shawn Michaels is here, and hype on the Bret Hart Vince McMahon storyline as well. Bret and Vince doing battle in this particular version of things. A tag match is up next, and Daniel Bryan and Michael Tarver are teaming up against David Otunga and Darren Young. Interesting that they're basically having all the rookies take over the program here. Darren Young kind of talks about being a major Shawn Michaels fan in the hype video that's here. And obviously, who's going to, have a negative view of someone who's a Shawn Michaels fan by any stretch of the imagination? More hype, hype, hype for Mania and all the chaos that is. And ultimately, we go to that main event tag team match. The Straight Edge Society makes their way out in support of Young. Young has not particularly done too well, except when Punk is involved in his wonders. So him having Punk and friends out there with him kind of works to his advantage, I think. Otunga and Young are here, and Tarver and Daniels are also here. Danielson. Anyway, so a bit of a tie up there. Otunga uses power and stays on Danielson pretty well, and keeps things going in a positive direction from their perspective anyway. Tries to stand up with the tip off, doesn't get all he wants on it. A deep arm drag by, and series of sequences. Tarver and Daniels comes in, and then we've got Young coming in. Tarver and Otunga are in there with each other. Tag off to Darren Young. He comes in a little bit and stays on, brawling on the outside. Some cheap shots. Various pros make their way out to the ring, kind of trying to put storylines behind the pros a little bit too, with the rookies to kind of keep things going in a meaningful way. Tarver manages to deck Young pretty hard, but Punk kind of looks on, surprised but not fully getting involved quite yet. Otunga and Young Otunga and Tarver stay with each other a little bit, and kind of a bit of a roll up there. Daniel Bryan comes back in, hits a few shots where he can get them. Tag off to Darren Young. Young and Danielson are in there with each other, and kind of Danielson does the come through. Tries to get a guillotine, doesn't get all he wants on it. Gets enough to hook him up for a little bit, though. Rolls out and hits the LeBell Lock. The LeBell Lock eventually does get Bryan Danielson the submission victory, and there are problems on the floor between Tarver and the Straight Edge Society, needless to say. Miscommunications leads to trouble, and that will close us for this particular edition here in about a little bit there. Actually, the continuation of the drop kick attempted on Otunga doesn't get all he wants on it, and for some reason I thought that was the end with the LeBell Lock, but it wasn't, and Otunga manages to get the victory for his team with a modified rock bottom, so I misspoke earlier, but anyhow, that closes us off. We'll be back with more right after this.